Hello, this is the last video for review for the final. This is about the Tkinter library, which allows us to make windows with buttons and lists and things like that. And this is the last major topic that would appear on the final. So rather than go through all the different kind of widgets that are allowed in Tkinter, you can refer to prior videos for that, or the Tkinter book that's linked on the prior videos and homework. We'll just build a application that uses some of the features. So first we're going to import everything from Tkinter. And I want to actually use random numbers also. What this program is going to do is allow you to play blackjack just by yourself. There's no money or anything, but it will just count the score of your hand. So it's going to deal cards, and it will show you the cards that it's dealt, and it will give you a score, and then you can start over. So you always need a window. You don't have to call it window, but you always need an object of the TK class. I'm going to have a little status box at the top that will tell you your score. At the beginning, it will actually say press deal to deal a hand, but after you've dealt your hand, it'll show you the score. We're going to use entry because it's going to be a box whose text I want to change. The user is not going to type in the box. I guess they could, but I'm not going to do anything with it. And let's put the initial words in there. Insert at position 0. And we use pack to put things into the actual window. Now again, because there's going to be plenty of stuff in this code, I'm not going to go through all the variations of like grids and pack, side left, side right, side bottom, all that stuff. You can refer to the previous videos about that. So we're just going to do top. We're just going to pack everything on the top, which means it'll just be ordered top to bottom. That's a status box. I'm also going to show a list of the cards that you've dealt. And let's just make sure that appears correctly. So let's run it at this point. There it is. My list box has no things in it. Okay, now this is blackjack, so we need 52 cards. Now obviously I'm not going to type 52 different cards out. I'm going to use a loop because there's a pattern here. There's all the numbers and jack, queen, king, ace, and then you have the 4 suits. So I'm going to make a list that holds this information. I'm going to call it all cards. And I'm going to go through the numbers. So looping through a list. And each of those could be spades, clubs, hearts, or diamonds. And I'm actually going to, since I want to calculate a score later, I don't want to put together the words jack and spades in one string, because then it'll be more challenging to actually figure out how much that card is worth in points. So I'm going to keep these two things separate. The number and the suit I'll keep separate. I'll use a little tuple again. I'm going to pair up the number and the suit and a tuple. Okay, let's just see if that worked. Here's our tuples. So when I calculate the score later, I only have to look at the first part of the tuple, because it doesn't matter if it's spades or whatever. All right, now let's define the code that will list the cards in the box. So actually I need to keep track of the cards in my hand. Let's start by putting 2 cards in there. Just random ones. I'll take that out later, of course. But I want some cards in there so I can actually list them. So as you saw in the prior assignment and videos, if you want to change everything in the list, you can just delete from the list box up here, position 0 to end, so everything is gone, and then go through what I have in my hand, and card, since it's got these kind of things in it, which are really these kind of things, card will be a tuple, so it's got 2 parts to it. And what I'm going to put in the list is at the end, this little phrase, so like Jack of Hearts or whatever. So there's the 2 parts of the tuple. So it'll look nicer in the box than it looks over here. And then let's make sure we execute that function. So here's my 2 random choices, position 5 and 10, but they look nice. Now I'm not going to do anything with selecting, I just want to list them. So it's irrelevant if I click anything. Okay, now I need a button for dealing. There's my deal button. Now I want to do something when I click it, which is I want to choose 2 new random cards to go in my list. So to make a button do something when you click it, you say command, and then you have to give a name of a function. So let's make a function called deal. And dealing means all the cards are taken out of my hand. There's a list function I didn't tell you about before, actually. You can clear a list, and I want to put 2 cards in there. Actually, since putting a card in your hand will be the same as hitting, let's also make the hit button while we're at it. So hit button. So when you hit, it will choose a random card out of all cards. That's why I use import random. So let's get a random position. Use the randint function, go from 0 to the length of the cards minus 1, because if there are 52 cards, the positions are actually 0 to 51. But randint, if we say 0, 52, randint might give us the 52, in which case the program would crash because there's really no position 52. So we have to go from 0 to 51. And get the card, and then put it in cards in my hand. So I'm going to take this part out. And after you hit, it should update the list. Okay, so a deal is a clear followed by hit. That gives you 2 cards. There's our 2 cards. We get more cards. So that's kind of neat. Notice, though, it's letting repeats happen because random doesn't care if it gives you repeats 2 different times. So what we need to do now is keep track of how many cards are left in the deck. So after we hit, it needs to take this 10 of spades out of the deck so I don't get it twice. Now, I don't want to remove, or I don't want to delete things out of all cards, because if I deal again, I need to reset the deck. So let's make a separate list called available cards. Probably better be called deck. Deck is currently empty, but I should actually fill it up when I deal. So dealing puts everything back in the deck. So all cards never changes. Deck clears out and then gets filled back up again with everything. And then when you do a hit, it's really got to look inside of the deck. And once you put it in your hand, it needs to take it out of the deck. So that will prevent the repeats. I don't see any repeats. I think it's working. Yeah. I'm not going to have any code that handles when you run out of the deck, because no one can take all 52 cards in blackjack. But this at least prevents the repeats. Okay. I want to add a little feature that doesn't let you run hit unless you run deal first, because let me show you what happens. I get crash because the hit command looks in the deck, but I haven't put anything in the deck yet because I never did a deal. So there's a neat little trick you can do with buttons. The hit button will have state disabled. I can't click it yet. Then when I do deal, I want to turn on the button. So deal will refer to the hit button and turn it enabled, which they actually call normal. So they define the button class such that it behaves like a dictionary. Not everything works that way, but this is how you turn it back to normal. So let's see what that does. So I can't click it yet, but if I click deal, it'll turn back to normal, which means I can click it. Okay. Looks like last is just making that score. I'll update this box here to give the score. So we need a score function. I guess I could put it maybe here. Well, maybe here. So def score. It's going to go through the cards and compute a score and return it. Score is 0 first for card in my hand. If card is in the list, or bracket 0, that's the num. If it's in the list of these 3, then it's worth 10. If it's an ace. Now I'll save you the time of thinking this through. I've done this for assignments in other classes in the past, and it's a pretty interesting assignment because you have to think about how aces work. If you're not familiar with blackjack, an ace can be worth 11 or 1. The goal is to get to 21 and not go over. So if you have a 10 and an ace, that's 21 already, and you're done. But if you have a 2 and an ace, that ace could be worth 11 or a 1. So if you do 2 ace and then you hit and you get a 10, well, it's more valuable to you to make that worth 13. So the ace would be a 1 instead of going over, in which case it would be like 23 or something. So whether an ace is worth 1 or 10 depends on the other cards. It depends on the score. So I don't really know if I'm going to add 1 or 10 at this point. I just want to remember I have an ace because I'll deal with it later. So have ace is true. I'm actually not going to support multiple aces. I just won't worry about that. Actually, no, I can do that. I can say score always goes up by 1 if you have an ace, because you're not going to have 2 aces worth 11. That you'd already be over. So if you have multiple aces, all the rest will be a 1 always, and that first ace might or might not be a 1 or 11. So either case, you're going to add 1. At the end of the for loop, once you've gone through everything and added up the score, now if have ace and your score is small enough, it's worth adding that extra 10. Probably less than or equal to 11. That would get you around 21. Else, if you have an ace, you can't just do else, because that would just be even if you don't have an ace. Actually, no, that is right. I'm doing it slightly differently than I solved it the first time. So this is actually all you need. If you have an ace and the score is less than or equal to 11, it's worth your time to add the other 10. But if you have an ace and the score is too high, we'll just leave it at 1. If you don't have an ace, of course, you don't do anything with the score. And then the last is one of these number cards. And so then you can just convert the number. So I've already handled Jack, Queen, King. I just handled ace here. Else score goes up by the number version of that string. And then you return. So let's put, when it lists the cards, it'll also update the score. So that's a matter of deleting from the status box, which is up here, and replacing it with the result of the function score. Okay, I think that's all going to work. It says press deal, but then when I do a deal, it runs the list command, list cards, which ultimately also updates the score, calculates and updates the score. So here I have a 6. Now that ace is worth 11 because it was good to do that, but if I keep going, suddenly that ace is worth a 1. So it's 6, 5, 11, and then 1. So that's what people do in blackjack. You get to choose your ace. And so here I would stop in blackjack and I'd have exactly 21 with 5 cards, which is pretty good. Reset. Here I would stop in blackjack also, because you're probably going to go over if you hit like that. And so forth. I don't know if I'll get to demonstrate multiple aces, but anyway, the goal with code like this, the Tkinter code, is this is something that people might actually use. I mean, it still looks a bit old style, especially on a Mac like this. It's very, very tiny, but people would know how to use it because there are buttons. But if you just write code that prints to the screen like we've done typically, no one's going to use that. So in your future, if you write Python code, it's probably worth your time to write a little Tkinter interface so that people will actually use your code. And I've been paid money as a consultant to build programs with Python with a little interface here that do things that are useful for people, like update a database or whatever. So people do really use that stuff even today. It may not look nice, but if they need a job done, the minimum is to have a little interface like this so that they can actually use it.